for your consumers. Okay? And the second half, Manju would be covering some use cases where he's worked with customers and has been able to make the real impact around this. Right? As I was saying earlier, your businesses have evolved in the way they impact the customers, and customers now have various ways of engaging with your businesses. They interact particularly from an omni-channel point of view. They have various touch points. They interact via an app, a website, through contact centers, and all of those engagements provide interaction data points for you. And then they typically in an organization end up being stored in a silo in a particular environment. Right? And it becomes very hard to manage that data. Right? Let's flip to the next slide. We've actually seen that there is empirical evidence around this. In fact, we've done a survey to understand what sort of experiences are expected from consumers. And we've seen typically about more than half of the consumers actually expect the websites to know their previous purchase history, their experiences, their preferences, and be able to present content that is custom to their expectations. We've also seen a study actually from BCG, which has quantified the business opportunity, and it is a significant number. So for companies that at least even 15% of the companies, if they get their personalization right, there is a market opportunity of about $800 billion. So that calls for a need to relook at how that problem is being solved and look at creative ways of addressing that need. Next one. As I initially called out, organizations typically struggle to solve this problem just merely because a lot of organizations have the data in different silos. And it becomes particularly difficult in situations where CMO organizations tend to outsource their digital strategy to third-party agencies, in which case the data is now living outside the organization. Not only creating challenges around being able to bring that data together, but also there's the security model around that data can be inconsistently applied. In fact, only a very small percentage of organizations we've spoken to have be able to leverage all the consumer data they have currently at hand. Right? And just flip to the next slide. The biggest challenge that I refer to is actually very well represented in this slide. Right? So anyone who's run a large organization would be very familiar with the names that are called out here. And a typical example is where we see about 30 to 40 different data sources, and they all live in their individual silos. And bringing the data together is quite critical. To make that entire data set meaningful impact, we've got to bring those bits of information together. It's just a story around the consumer to build a 360-degree view of the consumer itself. And again, to increase the relevance around it, there is also a need to actually add third-party data sets as well to it. Things like external events, weather, other kind of news events, those sort of things, to make it very contextual and to add yet another dimension to be able to analyze why something happened at a certain time or why a particular segment of customers behave in a certain manner. This obviously makes it particularly hard. And if we flip to the next slide here, it's a very good example where it demonstrates that in the overall life cycle of trying to do that, there are these 5 individual steps that most organizations have to take. First off is collecting the information. Bringing the data from various silos and bringing it together is the first big hard part. And the challenge there is to be able to have a single store big enough to be able to store all of that information and keep getting that feed in near real time. But also be able to economically store that information and retrieve that in a response time that makes sense for your business. So if it takes really long to get data from archivals and things like that, then it kind of loses the market opportunity that you have to get your data back in near real time to make the business decisions. The next few parts are kind of implied, so I won't labor them too much. But the idea is that once you have the data, you've got to be able to go through the actual rigor of being able to transform, analyze, and visualize what the data looks like, and got to be able to do that at scale. And it requires specialized tools that can handle that amount of data. And the last bit, obviously, is activating that data point as well, because once you've gathered the insight, you've got to then be able to engage the customers now that we have a special insight that we would want to engage them with. Switch to the next slide. So this is what a typical architecture would look like in a scenario where we would work with typical customers, and we've seen that a lot of the products that they currently use do have tight integrations with Google Cloud products. So things like Google Ads, Ad Manager, YouTube, they already have quite a bit of data connectors which allow you to be able to integrate seamlessly. And that takes away a lot of engineering overhead and helps you get started. We've also got connectors for third-party products as well, the popular CRM tools, inventory, those sort of things, inventory management. The real magic where the power of 247 comes into is the middle part, right? Where they bring in their industry knowledge and their domain knowledge and are able to build custom machine learning models and big models that really leverage the data and once we get it inside the warehouse and be able to bring that to them. And then there are toolings on the right side which kind of help you visualize and then activate that. So using models. So on the next slide, I'd like to also cover some of the use cases that typical CM organization is familiar with. Again, based on the conversation we've had so far around being able to engage customers, these three things kind of very nicely resonate. And I'd love to talk more about these use cases during or after the course of the session. But these are the things that you would typically want to do to be able to increase the level of engagement and obviously impact business through increased conversion as well. So the first part talks about understanding the customer base. And typically the challenge that companies have is they have to stitch the experience that customers have in store and let's say online or across the various channels. And being able to stitch the whole story across these various channels will give them opportunity to spot trends and do analytics and do segmentation to sort of standard practices, but be able to do that at scale. The second part is about predicting marketing outcomes, and that helps you improve the effort that is spent on running marketing campaigns, because the marketing campaigns can then be very directed and focused on very specific segment of customers. And last bit is around experience itself, and that is around being able to be responsive to changing behaviors of the customers and be able to show them the content that they need based on their previous actions. That's kind of the three areas, and we'll talk more about in subsequent slides. So what makes us different, right? And so the idea around being able to build a platform that is the marketers need in mind makes a significant difference. So we understand what the day-to-day problems are for marketers, because we primarily have a large ads business, as you know, and we have a lot of Google machine learning expertise that we bake in for learnings from running our B2C products like the Maps product and the Gmail or search. And that is all underpinned by Google Cloud's capability to manage security and reduce the effort that goes into managing the day-to-day operations around it. And yet, now obviously, keep it all open for you so that you can leverage this across whatever landscape you have. And we bring the best of Google to that area. And we do that by all the other products that we have in our ecosystem. So that makes a compelling proposition for you to use this platform for building the personalization and build the right platform that you would like. So just to bring this to life, I wanted to cover two very quick examples to see how some of those things would work out. And again, Manju and I were discussing this ahead of this call as well about how the landscape has changed in the COVID world. And there has been people shifting priorities from being able to exist on a day-to-day basis versus looking at things that would require them to change gears and pay attention. And that would only be possible if the content that they see is relevant to the current asks and needs. And here's a good example of how leveraging the technology that we discovered quickly would come to bear. Here's an example of a creator. It's more of a shell than anything else and has about two other parts. So one is where you populate the content based on the context. And there's a feed of data which kind of you can put together to say, if the scenario is this, then just demonstrate content like that. Right? Switch slide. This broadly, the way that this would work is typically people would look at the in-session data or the customer's session information to figure out what creative to demonstrate. Right. But what this allows you to do is to take extra bits of information in near real time to figure out how to populate the creative. So this particular example, it extends beyond the session data to look at the geographic location, the day of the week, the time zones, and other dimensional aspect as well, which can bring relevance to the content. And in some cases, we've also leveraged the content on page to decide what sort of creative to show. So, for instance, if you're seeing recipes of a particular kind, and the creative could then take the context of the images of the page content itself and put that in the creative. And all this leads to an increase. If you flip the slide a little bit, you can skip the next one. So this is a very high level architecture where you've got data coming in from your clickstream in terms of how people interact on your website or your apps. That goes into a warehouse system and using machine learning model and a kind of mapping data set. You can then modify the creative in real time and demonstrate that to the consumer itself. Switch again. Right, and that is broadly given us twice as much conversion rate than a historical pretty flat static banner approach. And that data-driven creative approach is obviously by far more engaging in that sense. Switching gears, just one last example I did want to talk about is when you're trying to build out a video creative. Right? So kind of the questions that people typically ask is, how quickly does somebody have a brand recall? So I think it's the next questions on this slide. So how quickly can you have a brand recall? What sort of presentation for a video would make more sense? It should be an indoor shoot or an outdoor shoot or a room or how we want to do that. What sort of keywords to use during the course? So what sort of narrative should be used in the video that will have a huge impact? And what sort of scenes should be put together in the creative that would increase the engagement? These are questions that people typically do in the former world where people would shoot a video and try multiple videos and see which one performs better. Google's view of trying to do this is slightly differently. So we've got something called video ML, which is a machine learning implementation that can understand the context of the video. And the way it works is once you've got a creative that you've been historically been running, you can upload this in the system and it can extract entities in it frame by frame. We've got about a library of 20,000 objects that it can expand, and that list is always increasing as we learn new things. But it kind of helps provide empirical data against your videos. And if you flip the slide a little bit, yes. So what it allows you to do is to be able to overlay that information with the engagement data itself, and it helps understands where the engagement, at what point did the engagement drop, and what was happening on the scene. And those things are very relevant for people who are creative directors or want to are responsible for increasing the engagement level there. We switch to the next slide. This kind of model actually really helps bring that data to life, where you can actually see what sort of attributes in the ad correlated with the engagement level, but to give you an idea of what works well and what doesn't work well. So here's a good example of performance versus occurrence index, and so is the next slide as well, which nicely covers those elements. And the idea is that you find the sweet spot where it makes which is just the right amount of occurrences and keyword, which will help you elevate the kind of engagement that you expect. Okay. So here comes a couple of examples I did want to talk about that you could look at, and again, Manju will cover some real life other examples as well where you work with customers to address those problems. Overall, the ability to be able to handle large amounts of customer data, bringing them back into a single place and be able to derive insights and then activate them is where the power of the using cloud is. With that, I'll hand it over back.
Thank you, Mr. Pandit. That was an informative session. Thank you very much. We would now be moving on to the quiz. So let's gear up, everyone. A few instructions to guide you. we would be running the quiz on menti.com. So all you have to do is grab your phones and in a separate browser, log on to menti.com. The login code and the website link has been pasted in the chat window and it is also displayed on your screens right now. I would request everyone to quickly log on to menti.com, that is menti.com, and use the code that is in your chat box and on your screens right now. We've also posted it in the Q&A section so that it is visible to everybody. All you have to do is, let me remind you, grab your phone in a separate browser. You will have to log into menti.com. I would request everyone, our speakers, our attendees, everyone to please log on to menti.com. Use the login code which is flashed on your screens right now, which is 158382. It'll ask you for your email address. Let me remind you to please log in with the same email ID that you've used to register for today's session. It'll help us identify you and assign you the respective cloud miles. Once you log in, it'll prompt you for your name. Do enter your name. Further, let me also tell you, as we have the attendees joining in the quiz, when we start the quiz, you will get 25 seconds to answer each question. The person who answers faster and who answers right will be on top of the scoreboard. Okay. So we've posted the link in the chat box, the direct link. You can just click on it. It'll open a separate browser. You have to put in the login code, which is 158382. Put in your official ID that you've used to log in for today's session and mention your name after that. As you can see on your screens, you have to log into menti.com. The link can be seen in your chat boxes, Q&A boxes as well. We'll just wait for a couple of more seconds till everybody joins in. Please log in to menti.com. Let me just remind you that once again, a couple of more people joining in. Put in the login code, which is flashed on your screens, that is 158382. One last time, log in with your official email ID that you've used to log into this session. It'll prompt you for your name. Please do mention your name so that it helps us identify you via your official email ID and your name. When we start the quiz, each question will have 25 seconds. Each person will get only 25 seconds to answer fast and answer right. Another 5 seconds and we can start the quiz. Okay, great. Let's start. All the best, everyone. The 3 Ds of customer experience are, there'll be 4 options on your screen. And let's see what's the right answer. Design, development, and deliver. I see a lot of you got that right. Moving on. In digital marketing parlance, the RACE framework stands for reach, act, dash, and engage. 4 options on your screen. Answer fast and answer right, and then we shall look at the right answer. Oh, I see a bonus of 5 seconds as well for all of you. That's 30 seconds each question. That's great. Time's up for this one. Let's see the right answer, which is convert. Never mind. We have a few more questions to go before we reach the scoreboard. All the best, everyone. 30 seconds, right answer, and faster. The use of online and offline promotion techniques to increase the audience of a site is known as dash. 4 options on your screen. Let's see the right answer now. Traffic building campaign. Great. A lot of you got that right. Moving on. All the best for the next few. Coming on to you right now. 30 seconds. Answer fast and right. Dash is the father of artificial intelligence. 30 seconds. All the best, everyone. Let's see the right answer. And it's Fisher. Okay, Fisher is the father of artificial intelligence. I see a few of you have got that right. Never mind, never mind. A few more to go. All the best. Moving on to the next one. Which of these is not a challenge in implementing machine learning? 4 options on your screens. And 3, 2, 1. Let's move on and see the right one. Affordability. Great going, everybody. Moving on, a few more questions left. Isn't this interesting? A few more questions and we'll have, I'm hoping to see a lot of questions and relevant comments and your views about the topic. Okay. The 3 types of machine learning are supervised, unsupervised, and dash learning. 30 seconds, answer that right and answer it fast. And the right one is enforcement learning. Moving on, we have a couple of more questions. There are 3 key types of online partnerships: link building, affiliate marketing, and dash. Let me read that for you since it's visible. The first option is ad serving, media multiplier, online sponsorship, interactive advertising. I'm sure you'll be able to see it on your browser very well. 4 options. Let's see which one is the right one. And it's online sponsorship. I see quite a few of you have got that one right. In email marketing, a database of customer names, email addresses, and profile information used for email marketing is usually known as. You'll have 4 options on your screen. And let's see which is the right one. House list. Oops, I see only one of you. Never mind, never mind. We have last 2 more questions to go. And I hope most of you get that right. Can't wait for the scoreboard. The field that investigates the mechanics of human intelligence is called dash. That's an easy one. History, cognitive science, psychology, sociology. 4 options on your screen. And let's see what is the right answer. Cognitive science it is. Okay, let's move on to the last question for this particular quiz. And then we move on to the scoreboard. What are the 2 subfields of natural language processing? 4 options on your screen. Last 30 seconds. Answer fast and right. Let's see the right one now. Algorithmic and heuristic. Great. I see a lot of you got that one right. Great going, guys. Let's move on to the scoreboard, the leaderboard now. And let's see who's on top. Mr. Rohit Gupta has got the maximum rights and been fastest. BC, congratulations, Mr. Rohit Gupta. Congratulations once again, and to all the others as well. We have the top 10, top 10 scorers and vouchers for all the other participants as well. I hope all of you get to earn more and more cloud miles. We encourage you to ask more questions and share your views and comments with us in the chat box and the Q&A box. We have a team who's waiting to see your views and comments, and your questions will definitely be taken up in the Q&A session after the panel discussion. So I encourage you to ask more questions. Please do not forget to put in your names and company names, or even direct the question to a particular speaker, and we'll get back to you on that. We now move on to our next thought leader presenting his perspective. I would now like to invite Mr. Manju Devdas, CEO at Pluto 7 and retail and supply chain expert, to share his views with us. Welcome, Mr. Devdas.
Thank you, Ankita. Can you pass the ball to me?
Yes, certainly. So my colleague Ankita has passed the presentation rights to you, Mr. Devdas.
All right. Thank you.
Over to you. Thank you.
All right. Hope you can see my screen. Yes. You see my screen?
Yes, Manju.
All right. Rajat gave you an overview of the customer experience as we see it today, and also introduction to Google Cloud, the various capabilities. We as a partner when we work with Google Cloud, we work with customers to enable the customer experience capabilities that they need to transform their businesses. And when we talk about customer business, applying machine learning, AI, data warehouse on the cloud, or building solutions with applications on top of this machine learning model for user interaction, typically we work with enterprises in marketing, sales, and supply chain, because a customer experience spans across all the three. I'm based in California, and having worked with 300 plus customers from various size of enterprises, large, medium to small, the world has evolved quite a bit. What took 10 years in the e-commerce world for growth happened the last 3 months. And a lot has to do with what we are all experiencing for the most part with COVID-19, with people locked down, buying pattern now shifting into digital. And when we work with the customers on these use cases, which I'll walk you through some of the samples, the common theme that comes across while working with these enterprises, I want to be able to connect my data. I want to see the digital footprints my customers leave. I want to be able to not only look at how they reacted to my email campaigns, my promotions, my the various interaction with the websites or commerce, but also I want to be able to give them the promotion where I have the right stock at the right inventory, or if I have an excess and shortage, recommend the alternatives. And which means, you're really now trying to converge the functions within the businesses to be more effective. And when we look at this, we work across various size organizations. It could be a large retailers like the ones like Kohl's, or it could be high-tech companies like the ones like Cisco, a $50 billion company, or mid-size and small companies where customer journey and customer experience has slightly different definitions depending on which vertical you're talking to. The fundamental difference that we see between what we used to see like 5 to 10 years back versus today is not just the convergence of cloud and cloud adoption becoming more prevalent, but also the process rethinking, the customer experience getting more well-defined, and the role of CMOs getting the center stage, where now they are driving and connecting the data and bringing it together to give a holistic view of what a customer experience means. And when we look at customer experience, working with these large enterprises around the world, connecting the front office to the back office, the campaigns, the promotions, the ads that the marketing launches, it's at the same time that the sales and supply chain wants to see, so that when sales is talking to those customers, they're having a common conversation. Whatever marketing ads and campaigns that they're seeing, the sales is talking the same language, and supply chain is getting up either for a demand rise or demand drop. With COVID-19, when we look at the scenarios, these scenarios are changing by geography, by zip code, by regions, by governments, and the predictability of this COVID-19 itself is a wild card for the most part. Having said that, it's not an absolute wild card where we have no clue. It's just that there are probably about 9 or 10 scenarios. Businesses are now looking for agile way of adapting and planning for these scenarios. And when to plan for the scenarios, it is not marketing, sales, or supply chain working in silos, but when the customer's buying pattern changes, and it changed pretty dramatically in the last 3 to 4 months for certain verticals and segments, and when the wallet share of spend from traditional to cloud migration happens, or some of the digital transformation, what they thought that they needed for a year or 2 years down the line, they see the urgency now, especially depending on the verticals and industries. The customer experience and when was traditionally looked at marketing and sales functions as we spoke to customers over the last 3 years. But this year, they're all converging. The C-level conversations that we're having is about customer experience, connecting the marketing to sales reps, to embedding machine learning and AI at every stage, from campaigns to to pipeline management, to demand forecasting, and so on. So when we look at these coming months, we see more collaboration between the marketing functions, sales, and supply chain, because there's a cascading effect. It's in some scenarios with omni-channel retailers, we see extraordinary demand for certain products, but they don't have the supply. So the demand is no good if you don't have supply, and vice versa. And then there are excess products available, but the demand has dropped and the customer is not interested because of the situations that they're in, where there is a lockdown and there's no need for certain products. And to make this simpler, from our customers' point of view, when we work with them, now there is a lot of need for innovation across these customers. They want to be able to try out cloud. They want to be able to try out machine learning, or they have tried it out before on a standalone basis. Now they want to have it as an integrated offering. So we built solutions that we put on GCP Marketplace. And when we say solutions, the 60 to 70% of the code is pre-built, which means you feed your data, the data pipeline, the data cleansing, and the machine learning models are pre-built for batch and custom batch or online real-time predictions. And through this, you can then look at, if you're doing marketing ML, and if you're still relying a lot on the email campaigns, you can plan the click-through ratios, see better click-through ratios, like what Rajat was talking about with ML. You could see better marketing performance. So we package these solutions, having solved for various customers, so that when you go in, you're not starting off and figuring out, okay, how do I connect my data warehouse, my big data, my BigQuery with my auto ML or custom ML, but you start off with the working model, and then you modify for your business. And these solutions, you can go into GCP in the marketplace and download that under the marketplace and get going. And I'll also give you a glimpse of what that would look like when from a user interface point of view. What's important to keep in mind is that when you launch these solutions and when you start experimenting it is the massive power of Google that you're getting behind the scene. At the front end, we give you the bare bone, but you can really expand to any extent that you want, to the metrics that you want to derive and generate, and whatever tools that you want to connect with. The key aspect here is we have customers who run anywhere from 50 billion to 100 billion in revenue. Even if you take their biggest data sets and run them and show them that you can run it under 30 seconds or less, and if it's cached, it's 5 seconds, that makes them rethink how their process work, how their marketing should work, how the campaign should be analyzed, how their campaign effectiveness is communicated with sales and supply chain. Why not all of us, instead of working in a sequence, why not work in harmony? What I show here is the Google Cloud, the application built on Google Cloud, which is the solutions that we shared. And within these UIs are embedded the machine learning models, whether it's pre-built or custom or semi-pre-built, as in AutoML, where you're doing streaming data, pulling into your environment, doing real-time analysis on your sentiments, and not only analysis of your marketing and doing your sentiment analysis from a marketing perspective to see which product to run campaigns against and which not, and what the trends are from a product sentiment point of view and what people are saying by geography and locations, but also tying it with your sales and understanding which customers am I losing. And it's not good if you know just before you lose them, but who are trending to become from a low risk customer to a high risk customers. So the machine learning models are running behind the scene to classify your customers as low risk and high risk. And for the volume of customers that you're dealing with and the volume of data that you're dealing with, any manual methods like the traditional BI methods would not scale up. And the customers who are low risk in January in certain industries have become high risk in a matter of few months. And I won't go too deep into the supply chain side of it because we mostly have marketing audience, but these days, the marketing promotions that you're launching, the sales analysis that you're doing against your churn risk, now you're looking at solutions like, how do I improve my forecast accuracy and also take in my marketing feed so that my accuracy gets better. And not only that, I do self-learning so that we reduce the excess and shortage in the back office. So now you're running a campaign and where there is excesses and where there is shortage, you're trying to regulate the demand. Because now there's 9 scenarios of COVID that you might land up with, depending on which industrial segment that you are in. You need to be able to run this in your entire business in agile manner. Entire business in agile manner means your marketing, sales, and supply chain are ready to adapt to the scenario. Country opens up, shuts down. Region opens up, shuts down, and those kinds of things that we have never seen before. All of this requires us to have a capability where the state of our business in every segment and functions or departments is reflected. Your processes are reflected in your data, and those data is where you make your decisions, and the decisions have to be made at scale, and that's where machine learning AI now gives you the ability to make a lot of decisions for you. Like, for example, this retail store, retail chain, a $20 billion retail chain, the way they think, and through our innovation between Google and Pluto 7, is why do you try to sense the demand at an aggregate? If this customer is going to purchase $2,000 worth of goods, and if your machine learning model really costs $100, you should be running an independent machine learning model for that customer, for that product combination alone. When you start thinking like this, that why not run an independent machine learning model for every customer, that sounds like too futuristic or far. But when you don't have to run, like if you have a million customers, run million machine learning models. But if you run not few, but a couple of hundreds, and let Kubeflows of Google Cloud manage that for you, and so that the operationalization of that is simpler than you think. Google runs thousands of machine learning models. Is the same capability that you can have for your enterprise, because at the end of the day, knowing what your customer wants is the most important aspect. And similarly, this other company which sells nutritious food tailored for customers' need now needs personalized monitoring of the customer's purchasing pattern. Because in the times like this, when customers are worried about basic, if you're trying to sell a premium grade product or food, you really need to worry about how to tailor the message with machine learning recommendations and insights so that the content is targeting the customer with the right product in the right manner, and that leading to better click-through ratios. Then we deal with customers who are diamond merchants, just selling jewelry. When people are sitting at home, now, how many people will really go buy jewelries and fashion products? Now, at the same time, these are not businesses that come in and vanish. They are multi-year businesses. Their customers visit the same jewelry store over and over. They have been doing that for a decade. But what they hit now is extraordinary scenario. We overlay their traditional sales data with the future projections of customers and customers' lifetime value. And also, depending on which state or city or zip code that's going to open up, what kind of promotions do you launch, which is tailored based on the store's opening or the online engagement that you'll have with the customers. With another multinational, and here, when they get 50,000 reviews in a week, there is practically no way they're going to employ enough people to analyze those reviews. And those reviews are constantly coming in. And you have to not only analyze, but also segregate what those reviews mean. Is it mean improving products? Is it mean improving treating certain customers differently, or stopping campaigns for certain customers? And all of this so that you optimize your contacts. And going a step further, you're selling to a certain customers before, and now that specific person in that customer site has moved on from the job. How do you find the next closest person whom you can sell? Through machine learning models based on the interaction between the two businesses, your business and the customer's employees. Now, when you look at more models, and this is another customer, a large high-tech customer, where they have the big ride share customers who started off small, buying in small quantities, but those small quantities were so insignificant that they could not recognize that these customers will eventually become big. It didn't show up in the sales radar, it didn't show up in marketing radar as MQLs or SQLs. But when you closely observe the data pattern, the real minuscule numbers were growing at an exponential rate, but that would not catch their attention for 6 months to a year. Machine learning models would catch that early on. So now when the customer is still really small, but the growth trajectory is high, catch that and interact with the customer so you build a strong foundation. These were like the diamonds in rough, and then propensity to buy. Then identifying customers where you lose, not when you lose, but when you tell them 30, 60, 90 days before, based on how they're navigating through the website. Are they clicking the emails more frequently or less frequently? Are they clicking on the newsletters? And all those digital footprints that they leave, which you have to analyze at scale, and one customer at a time. If you're tracking your customers, and whether it's an insurance company or and those kinds of things, customers are browsing certain information. They're looking for certain information out there. When they're not driving their cars, what happens to the number of accidents it reduces? What happens to the insurance policies? Now, customers are questioning that. So now, with these personalized experiences, you now target one customer at a time, so you retain them. Similarly, when we work with grocery stores, with 30-40% of the inventory not being available, how do you still make sure that the customer satisfaction is not impacted because the product what they came in is no longer available? Now, in a digital environment where customers are now interacting and leaving digital footprint, while they put it to the market, into the basket, but they really don't transact, knowing what will make them move through these ML models, which are saying, okay, maybe you might want to bump up the discount, and that will make them move. And when customers see that these kind of ML recommendations work, they adopt more. The scale at which the data is getting generated and the users are leaving their footprints, it's important to group them dynamically rather than static roles, and which many of you may already be adopting it. It's just that the platform now enables you to do that at scale. Hospitality industry, it has changed pretty dramatically. Now, depending on what's going to happen next every month, they need to adapt to the promotions and campaigns, and also be ready when things pick up. They can't start off from scratch, but they need to prepare the whole bookings and campaigns and everything well in advance. Similarly, when we deal with construction companies, when many people are communicating, introducing chatbots to improve the customer experience, so that when people are buying homes and when they want to know what's the status of those homes and when the construction will be done, and having chatbots available improves the customer experience, so they feel like they are getting very specific information about the homes that they buy or the projects that they are engaged with the companies. Similarly, food delivery, optimizing your food delivery, another key impact to customer experience. These days, more people are ordering food now. At the same time, now it's also not just the order experience, but the promotions that you launched, and now you don't have enough service people delivering the food. How do you quickly adjust your marketing campaigns? How do you quickly adjust your sales efforts so that you don't lose the customer? And even if there is an impact during supply chain, how do you course correct it? So when you start thinking about these things, there is innovation at every stage. From all our assessment over the last 90 days and talking to customers, if there was a change in time in history where innovation is at its best in the last many decades, this is the quarter and these are the months. One of the main reasons why customers engage us to enable the innovation on Google Cloud is because of the difference that they see in the business. So the way we work with is we conduct workshops and proof of concepts of those solutions. That way you get on a journey with Google Cloud, you understand all those capabilities, and from there on, there's no going back in terms of your innovation, especially when your team starts seeing that what they thought was very difficult to accomplish can be done at 1/3 the time. With that said, let me pass it back to Ankita.
Thank you, Mr. Devdas. That was an informative session. I'm sure all the participating audience have some key takeaways from your session today. Thank you very much once again. Moving on, it's polling time now, and your thoughts matter a lot to us. So please gear up to participate in the poll, which is displayed on your screens right now. I request everyone to participate, all our panelists, all our speakers, please do cast in your polls. I would request you to please scroll down. As you can see, there are in all 6 questions. We've allocated certain time for it. I would request you to please see on the right-hand side of your screens, where is the poll displayed. You will have to scroll down to see all the 6 questions. I hope all of you are able to see the polls on the right-hand side of your screens. There are in all 6 questions that are being reflected on the right-hand side of your screen in the poll. I would request each and every one of you to please answer these 6 questions. Immediately after this poll, we'll have the panel discussion, and we'll have all our panel speakers sharing their views regarding the pertinent topic that is being discussed today. It'll be moderated by Mr. Biswajit Das, and we can't wait to hear all our speakers' views in the panel discussion, following which we'll have a Q&A session at the end of the panel discussion. I hope all of you have sent in your questions. In case you haven't shared your questions, we would request you once again to put in your questions in the Q&A section. And we'll take up the questions in the Q&A session, which is scheduled after the panel discussion. Don't forget to put in your responses for the poll, as it is mandatory as a part of the gamification. We'll also be circulating the poll questions in an email after the session to all the attendees, in case if you happen to miss the poll, but we urge you to answer all the questions reflected in this poll. Don't forget to scroll it down. Couple of more seconds and we shall stop the poll. Last 20 seconds, 15 seconds to go for the poll. Once again, on the right-hand side, there are in all 6 questions. Please scroll down. Okay, great. What an overwhelming response. Thank you so much, everyone who put in their votes. Before I move ahead, let me also remind you about the workshop. Please contact Pluto 7 on contact@pluto7.com to know more about the free 2-hour discovery workshop with their customer experience AI experts. In case if you want to know more about them, please contact them at contact@pluto7.com. Now let's move on to the most awaited knowledge sharing and interaction session, the panel discussion. This discussion is around the topic Elevate Customer Experience during COVID-19 with ML and AI. And we have some very interesting names here. The moderator of this session is Mr. Biswajit Das, Director, Lighthouse, AI Analytics, Big Data, KPMG India. Thank you, Mr. Das, for joining us. Our first panelist, Mr. Manju Devdas, CEO at Pluto 7 and Retail and Supply Chain Expert. Thank you, Mr. Devdas, for joining us. Following him is Mr. Saurabh Verma, Chief Marketing Officer, Inox Leisure Limited. Thank you, Mr. Verma, for joining us. Following him is Mr. Deepu KV, President and Head of Operations and Customer Experience, Bajaj Allianz General Insurance Company. Thank you, Mr. Deepu, for joining us. Next on the panel is Mr. Avnish Mehta, Director, Digital Transformation, Colabera. Thank you, Mr. Mehta, for joining us. We also have with us Mr. Sanjay Kumar, Marketing Head, Middle East and Africa, Freshworks. Thank you, Mr. Verma, for joining us. Let us begin the panel discussion. Over to you, Biswajit.
Thank you, Nehal. Can you guys hear me fine?
Yeah, we can.
Yes.
Okay, brilliant. I really enjoyed the last, I think, almost a little more than half an hour, right? And also, thank you, Nehal, for that introduction. After 50 days of less than satisfactory feedback for my dishwashing and general cleaning skills at home, it's a nice professional boost to be introduced by you in such a way. So anyhow, so so obviously we all know it's whichever way we look at it, right? The pandemic is a disaster, has been in many ways a disaster for the world. But obviously at some point of time down the line, whether it's a few months or more than a few months, things will come back to normal. We will meet, travel, sanitizers will become more easily available. There will be no lines in front of liquor stores. But things would have changed. I mean, COVID-19 has forever changed the experience of being a human being, of being a citizen, of being an employee, and definitely of being a customer, right? And behavior changes at scale should be expected by all of us for some time to come. And what will have changed in the way we think, behave, and react, and how will that affect the way we design, communicate, build, and run the experiences that people need and want? And how can we leverage AI and ML, etc., to help you navigate better the journey of creating new experiences in the new normal? And that's what we wanted to have a conversation on this. Just as a bridge to what you were saying, Manju, right? I was talking to you. You've been doing predictive analytics now for close to 20 years, right? And
Yeah.
we would love to hear from you. How has this evolved from, so to speak, analog to digital? And also, how do you think COVID will impact customer experience?
Yeah, so there's a huge human psychology aspect that's playing a role right now. The fundamentals of statistics and math has not changed. The need to know the future has not changed. That was there 20 years back. If you think of a time series forecast of how much will I sell to a customer, how much revenue will I make, will I survive as a business, that always remained. But in and humans are amazing in linear thinking when linear scenarios happen. 10% up, 10% down, not a problem. They'll navigate through. But when the scenario changes 40% up or 50% down, it's an exponential growth or a decline that happened at a very rapid pace where they're not able to plan the scenario. But what happens is in a scenario which changes so dramatically, the psychology starts playing and they try to lean back at the history to figure out how to predict the future. Now, it's not as easy as they thought. And that's why, because of the anxiety, they start thinking of the worst scenario, where the worst scenario is really not what their business will probably land up with, but there's a better scenario. With cloud and compute and memory, it's allowing you to do a lot more math and predict more scenarios than what you could possibly do, whether it's with a rule-based system and so on. That's the fundamental change that has happened. And humans will get used to this relying on machines more, machine-based decisions more, because they'll accept that I can't run this many scenarios in my head and make rational business decisions. especially when your own customers are emotionally acting with a lot of sentiment. And sentiments has to be analyzed on scale because that's affecting the purchasing decision. Does that answer your question, Vishwajit?
Absolutely, Manju. I think this is exactly what we're saying. We're saying how can we take help from all the technologies that we have to sort of augment the intelligence that we can use. Obviously, there is also another line of thought which is constantly saying machines will take over the world. And there's this joke that a very dear friend who heads the computer science department in IIT Powai he makes says, "What is the joke of the future?" And he says that it will be one human being and one dog. The only job of the human being will be to feed the dog, and the only job of the dog will be to see that the human being doesn't touch any of the machinery. Right? But all jokes aside, Avnish, we were having this interesting conversation when you talked about augmented intelligence. So I wanted to hear what does that mean to you?
Sure. So, Vishwajit, Manjunath just mentioned that, it's the sentiment which matters, especially, when we're talking about people, customers. Sentiments. So, if we talk about the three E's, we already talked about the 3 D's of customer experience. So, there are 3 E's, which is effectiveness, ease, and emotion, right? So, to be effective, of course, we have AI and ML, models help us out. But the emotion part, right, is of course is also taken care of. But emotion part is something which is machines really can't help much because suppose somebody gets in an accident, so they have a GPS tracker and maybe Fitbit and everything. There, all the vital data is there. If they call for help, so first thing they want to hear is everything is going to be all right, right? So that's a human can do. So that's an extreme scenario, but what I'm trying to get is while the routine operations can be handled or should be handled by machines, the automation, what automation is helping us with is a release or free up humans to do relationship building with each other. So be it employee customer or employee employer customer customer on social media. So that's what we need, and that's the fronting of humans aided by AI to step up their customer engagement and build up relationships. So that's where I see a lot of future in with augmented intelligence.
Correct. Absolutely. I totally believe, and I keep saying this, the technology has only one role to play, and that is to amplify human capabilities, right? Whether it is lift more, do faster, and in our cases, think, process, and think at a higher speed and at a greater volume. Absolutely agree. And when it comes to emotions, Sanjay, yours is an organization that actually works very closely with one of our basic biological emotions, right? How have you been leveraging AI ML for experiences in general in business and maybe also specifically for your organization right now? Sanjay, can you hear me?
Sorry, I was on mute. Can you hear me now?
Yep, Sanjay, absolutely, loud and clear.
Okay, sorry for that. So yeah, that's a good question. So what I was saying is, I think looking at the previous presentation also, right? So I think from where Rajat started, what is basically helping us and what is basically important for marketers, especially organizations, especially the marketing team, right? Which is the way customers are expecting brands to respond right now has completely changed, right? So they more than 60% of customers expecting personalized experience. They're expecting that brands should be having the kind of previous purchase history, etc., to be able to deliver the experience that these guys expect, right? So that's where AI and ML basically helps any organization and any function, right? And the way it plays an important role, especially in marketing, is because in marketing, and especially during these times where things have changed so much in last month, and there is so much happening in the digital space, I think it is even more important for marketers to be able to use these data and ensure that they have the right data with them. Whatever campaigns they are planning or whatever messaging they are planning to kind of launch has to be relevant, and at the same time, how can they deliver that personalized experience, right? So that is something where AI and ML will basically play a big role and in fact playing a big role in our organization as well. So, for example, we're looking at these technologies to kind of help us identify the kind of leads that flow into our system, and identify which leads would be something which would translate into a business, right? In terms of the engagement they're having with our website, in terms of the engagement they're having with the content that we are sending out, the campaigns that they are receiving, etc., etc. So these are few ways where AI ML is basically, helping us to kind of channelize our efforts and ensure that we are able to cut through the clutter, and also give that personal experience that customers are expecting. And one more thing which I would want to touch when, especially we're talking about these technologies, helping marketers. So we have few customers, and I think Manjunath was also kind of pointing this out in his presentation, where he was talking about how retail can be affected, or how e-commerce is getting affected right now. For example, take a scenario where, as a customer, you go and visit an e-commerce page, right? And somehow you are just confused, or you are in a dilemma whether to purchase this product or not. So now what is happening is we have chatbots who basically analyze this in terms of the workflow you set up, and they are able to kind of, probably assess that there is a promotional discount or offer which might trigger this customer to kind of go ahead and make their purchase. So these are few ways where chatbots are adding value. They are able to drive that marketing campaign, and also ensure that this particular transaction and engagement can result into a sale. So these are few ways where we are seeing AI ML playing a crucial role, and I think this will be the future that we would see in coming months, where e-commerce is also picking up a lot.
Sure, sure. So, Deepu, just to sort of feed off what Sanjay was saying, right? Deepu, you being a part of Bajaj Alliance are in a business which is at the core of trust and risk, right? And when you and I were talking, you sort of mentioned how, as an organization, you seamlessly switched to digital during the lockdown, right? So we would obviously want to hear about that, and also how has this affected your customers and business indicators in general?
Yeah. Thank you, Vishwajit. Firstly, just want to check, can you hear me?
Yes, absolutely, loud and clear.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for your kind words, Vishwajit. Yes, we did manage a seamless shift to digital servicing, during the lockdown. For starters, one thing which is very important in any such situation, when the normal shifts to a new normal, is to ensure, all-round communication. I think we basically ensured repeated massive communication to our partners and our customers, so they knew what to expect. Secondly, as I told you earlier, real leadership comes to the fore, when there is a crisis. So what we did was to convert, a necessity into a virtue. Call centers were shut down because of the lockdown. So what it did was, we did shift from call centers to digital servicing. We up the ante, on WhatsApp, on the bot, on the portal, on the website. And thanks to our massive communication, we were able to ensure a seamless shift. And as I mentioned to you, our grievances has actually come down, to a far lower fraction what they were, prior to COVID. In fact, while many people are wondering, what will they do once the lockdown ends? We're just saying that, if the going is good, why should it not, right? Because it's been a seamless shift to digital servicing. These our motto is caringly yours, right? So what we did, was we went beyond normal servicing, because customers typically expect a shift, in terms of your core offerings. So we launched a series of, innovative solutions on our app. For starters, we launched a feature called Social Backtrack. This was before Arogya Setu. So customers, could actually do contact tracing. That was a significant value add. Other is we also launched a self-assessment on COVID-19. So customers could actually use our app to do a self-assessment. Thirdly, a lot of players rely only on English for digital. We actually engaged in multilingual communication. So we were able to expand our reach, beyond our traditional base. And right now, given the lockdown and given social distancing, many people, can't even, for instance, reach out to doctors. We launched, a doctor on call, feature on our app. So, customers could, avail of that feature, and reach out to doctors. So I think a few of these caringly yours measures, as well as the massive communication and ramp up of our digital facilities, have helped us, manage this shift, from the pre-lockdown era to the current era.
Correct, Dipa. I think it has also broken a lot of glass ceilings about saying if you don't have physical proximity, then these general business indicators would ideally not be as good as they are. But obviously for you, it's been the other way around. I mean, the 90% you said drop in grievances, which is obviously massively good for business, right? Another business which has sort of not only kept us sane, but has also been doing fairly well, relatively given the state of affairs, is the entire entertainment industry. Obviously, Netflix and chill we have taken to another, different level altogether. So, Saurav, I would want to quickly bring you in here, right? So, how are you? How is the entertainment industry by and large leveraging these AI and ML technologies?
Hi, can you hear me, guys?
We can hear you. We can see you, Saurav.
Yeah, okay. So basically, there are two parts of entertainment industry. One is obviously the OTT platform, which I think in India is in a very nascent stage. We're still learning what to do in terms of content. We are, I think, not even 10% of how international content is made. We don't have data of what works, what does not work. We do not have data of how many men and how many women watch the films. We do not have data of the fact that with an extraction of a Netflix has worked, what exactly, I mean, how many people have exactly seen it? Or a Hindi content, if it, I mean, a lot of producers claim, oh, my content has really worked. But how many people have actually seen it? What is the ratio of male versus female? What is the age group which you are seeing? So I think there is a complete lack of information in terms of data in the entertainment industry. Secondly, I guess what has happened is that film industry has various sources of revenue. So one is the theatrical window, which is through cinemas, which I represent, which is INOX. So that's shut down. And the problem what right now the industry is facing is that we really do not know when we're going to be opening up because cinema seems to be the last priority in everybody's mind. So all those things are being tackled with. But having said that, I just feel that this is the time to, think through. And while in every business there are two kind of things. One is the urgent things. Everything needs to be addressed urgently, and there are important things. So this is the time to think about the important things. So in terms of things, the creators are still thinking, content creations which used to happen. Yeah, 30 days may just write a film and we'll shoot it. Now they have enough time to review and think about what they need to create. And in terms of data, cinemas have a lot of data. We have around 75 million people coming at INOX in 68 cities itself. But the problem is not acquiring data. The problem is we most of the time lack in slicing and dicing of data. What is the exact information do we want? If you still go to retail stores, if you still go to entertainment, and if you actually see the heat signature, you will find certain areas which are not being utilized. So all that happens. But I think from our perspective, I would speak on behalf of the Indian entertainment. I think that slicing and dicing is something which we need to master in. We may have the text or we may acquire the tech, but using it is also an art.
Absolutely, Saurav. I mean, the devil in this one is in the details, right? How do you look at patterns? How do you do trend spotting? How do you build cohorts? How do you do cloning, etc., etc. And Avnish, while obviously when I was in the marketing, when I was a marketer, we used to constantly say content is king. But today, sometimes more than not, I think context is more important today, right? And Amrish, we wanted to quickly hear from you on saying how does ALMI really help you contextualize whether it is messaging or whether it is a recommendation, etc., etc.
Sure. So in marketing, I mean, generally the focus is on segmentation, right? And the now next is coming, or what people are talking about nowadays is persona. Are we able to create a customer's persona? So what we are talking about is consumers' needs, desires, context, behavior, right? So in this, of course, when we are talking about segmentation, so definitely AI ML helps in segmentation or finding new segments, even finding new customers, fine-tuning segments. So data-driven part is there. Now, next part is when we have the data from the ecosystem. So we're not just talking about, data from, say, voice of customer platform or operation data, transaction data, purchase history. We are talking about what is outside the our system as well in the ecosystem, like their customer reviews on different media, social media, their preference channel, and the context they are looking into. So these all is actually giving us, helping us creating a persona. So two things are now going side by side, which is segmentation and persona creation. So which is giving us the context as well as more ways to generate revenue. So this is, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, Avnish. Ankita and Nihal, will somebody please keep me honest for time, please, and let me know when we sort of, obviously, because six of us, I think, can go on for ages, but you guys will have to keep on. While you figure that out, Manju, I wanted to quickly circle back to you, right? The moment we talk about AI, ML, and how it sort of helps experience, etc., everybody's first go-to is to say, oh, this is for digital native businesses, right? But you and I both believe that it's not just for online businesses. It can have as large an impact on brick and mortar businesses also, right? I wanted to quickly hear from you, Manju, on that.
If I look at the spectrum of 300 plus customers that are engaged in the last 2 years, there is a good portion of them, they are not digital native. So in other words, it applies for every segment, every industry, every vertical. It's a little hard to comprehend today, like how could that be possible, right? If you replace the eye, ear, and sense that we have in our head, and which we use for decision making, with a digital twin sitting next to us, where would we use that? Right? We use literally everywhere, right? As a customer, as a business. So just like how internet proliferated in every segment, every vertical, every industry, every department, AI will be even more than that, right? And that is very evident with what we are already seeing. There are 10 Google products with 1 billion users across every language possible. They use 4,000 plus machine learning models. Nobody ever thought that, these are all machine learning models. I gave a photo and there's a similar photo showing up, right? Now you have a product catalog, you have the next similar product showing up. So it will embed within the whole marketing and customer experience without even customer knowing it's AI.
Yep, I think that's the way to democratize this, right? When machine learning and AI is not a product by itself, just a native organic part of your larger business or whatever you're doing, whether it's retail, whether it's manufacturing, whether it's automobiles, does not really matter, right? But the other thing also is that we must remember this is a very rapidly evolving, space. Yesterday's enviable gadget is today's pager, right? And we need to constantly be evolving our offerings. And Deepu, this is, I wanted to talk to you about. So, one of the things that all of us, the bots have become very passe, right? Nobody talks about them. But I want to talk to you about how you actually took your bot and evolved it to your bot 2.0, so to speak, Deepu.
Thank you, Vishwajit. As you rightly mentioned, everybody uses bots today. They are pretty ubiquitous. Find them all over the place. So the whole idea is, how do you differentiate yourself, so that it can make a real difference to customers. So for starters, we started to operate our bot, in languages other than English, because that ensures that we're able to reach out to a far wider mass. Sure. The other is today, especially in the age of COVID-19, a lot of people are wary of touch, right? And touchless UI is expected to be the next frontier. So one thing we have done is, we've actually integrated with voice. So whether it is Alexa or whether it is Google Home, you could basically use our bot, ask questions, and then get queries, and then get your queries on our services answered. So that's one more area, where we have upped the ante. The third is, while we leverage AI and ML, one thing which we need to understand is that the learning develops over a period of time, right? Because the more the bot does, the more it learns. So initially, what we did was when we launched our bot, we said let the customer not sends any break-in service. Because typically you will find that if you go to a website, and if the bot is not able to answer beyond its range of services, typically, you are asked to either log into the website or call up the call center, and that becomes a very sad experience for the customer. So right upfront, what we did was to ensure a seamless shift from the bot to a call center agent, at the back end. So the customer, does not see any break-in service, but he continues to get serviced. And what we are doing internally is over a period of time, the ratio of self-service by the bot to this, seamless shift to the human being in the back end, we are continuously evolving that ratio over a period of time. So that's how, like I told you, we are leveraging complex AI and ML at the back end to ensure, a very simple, UI UX to the customer. It's something like a swan, right? It's very gracefully floating on the water, but the legs are continuously, shaking below the water. So that's how, we have leveraged AI ML on our bot journey to make life simple for our customers.
So I think this is a brilliant example of how probably this is any which way is a program that you're going to invest in, but because of the COVID situation, I think it would have just got accelerated, found a little more support in the boardroom, etc. And one of the things I really like is your inclusion of voice interaction, because obviously that makes it more intuitive, and we see more and more interactions in terms of experiences moving towards voice and haptic touch, etc., right? So obviously, Sanjay, yeah. So coming round to you, Sanjay, right? Just as Deepu spoke about, right? Many businesses will have to make many sort of course corrections post COVID, right? What do you think some of these will be, and what role does MLAI have to play in these course corrections?
Okay, so see, there are two ways we can look at this, right? So the way things have changed, there are a lot which has to be changed internally, which is what would be the change within the employees and teams, and what kind of changes needs to happen to kind of reflect uh, and ensure that we are in constant communication with the customers, right? So I think one of the important things or key things that we as a team have done, for example, when we started off this year, we had great plans of, basically our entire year's plan was ready. What kind of campaigns we will run, how the leads will flow, where will these leads be coming from, what kind of budgets we have, and everything of that sort. But within like a month, everything basically changed, and all those plans were irrelevant for us, right? So the first important thing is to quickly adapt and come up with a plan which is more relevant to the current times, right? So that basically means that quickly look at have a recovery plan in terms of what your next move should be, and then analyze how do you go out and reach the market, right? And I think what we have understood is, especially when we talk about internal, is that it is very important for us to quickly collaborate with teams, because the way things have changed, as I said initially, everybody is out digitally to kind of reach out and do campaigns, right? And we have to ensure that, and we also have to be responsible when we're reaching out to customers and ensuring that we're not spamming them. It's very easy to run campaigns on digital right now, but we also have to ensure that how can we differentiate ourselves, how can we creative, how can we have the right context when we go out and talk to these guys, right? So I think it is, from an internal point of view, it is important for organizations and teams to kind of collaborate, come together, understand the customer's point of view, understand complete context of anything that you want to do, and then go to the market. So that is something which basically has happened internally, right? So, and if you look at from the customer's point of view, so the situation, especially COVID-19, has impacted everybody hugely. So it is important for us to be in contact, be in constant touch with customers, either through different teams like customer marketing can play a role here. Have a continuous conversation with them through QBRs, do some internal campaigns with them, order some, basically offers these freemium at this moment. I mean, I don't mean to say that you offer your products for free, but basically lend a helping hand where you can at least give trainings for free. That basically builds a goodwill at this moment right now, and hopefully uh, convert into a business in future, right? So these are few things that that basically has happened internally as well as external. So yeah, and also one thing which we will have to keep in mind is, as I said, from a marketing standpoint, right? Everybody is going digital, and I think we are not very far that this digital fatigue will basically set in, where you see webinar invites, you see everybody doing campaigns left, right, and center, right? So how do you ensure that you basically uh, get little creative, experiment with your campaigns, experiment with your stuff, and then ensure that you basically stand out? And so these are a couple of things that basically has happened, and I think that's something which should be done as immediate course correction in the future.
Yep, absolutely, Sanjay. Also, I think while a lot of this sounds, if you are not neck deep in the business, then a lot of these sounds saying, how I don't have the skill sets in my organizations to do a lot of this, right? But the good thing is there are not only organizations out there such as Manju's and Sanjay's, but also platform which allows a lot of this to be democratized, which allows you to experiment a lot on your own. Heavy, let's call them low code, platforms where you can sort of look at how to do that. I think we are already I think we're running fairly late, right? So let's open it up to everyone for questions. I've got one for Deepu. Right, Deepu Madhav from Geo says you mentioned the journey from bot to call center. Don't you see the journey should be from call center to bot? Your views, please. While Deepu answers that, I think that is what he meant. But Deepu, over to you.
Yeah. So, Madhav, good afternoon. Good to catch up with you again. I mentioned about precisely what Vishwajit said, that when, call centers were shut down during the lockdown, how did we ensure a seamless shift via digital servicing, from the call center or from the human being, to the bot. So essentially we, unleashed a massive communication campaign and ensured that there was no dip in our service. And we continue to leverage all our digital assets. As I mentioned before, it's a very high percentage of our servicing today, which happens through digital assets. And also the fact that the tremendous reduction in our grievance ratios, is testimony to the fact that, it's working out well. So that's precisely what I clarified earlier, as also endorsed by Vishwajit. Thank you, Vishwajit, and thank you, Madhav.
Thanks. I have this quick question from Parth. Parth asks, and this is open to everybody, so please feel free. It says, for a business with the majority of its target audience belonging to low capability, read non-tech savvy people, how can consumer experience be improved via MLAI on the platform medias which have limited scope for improvement? Manju, would you want to pick this up? I think this is right up your alley, right?
Yeah, so one thing I would strongly recommend is don't try not to classify your customers as low tech or high tech, because at the end of the day, everybody knows math, everybody makes a regression or a classification decision. They might not use this term. They know what is good and bad recommendation, and they, irrespective of what language they speak, there is translation APIs. So the suggestion I have is, like in terms of AI, the driving factor should be is, can I serve this customer at scale? Like if I have, instead of 10,000, if I have 50,000 customers asking, if I can't add more labor, can I put AI to do the same job? Look at it from that angle. Don't worry about whether AI is high tech and low tech or the customer is high tech or low tech, because AI is getting simpler where the customer doesn't. Humans will start talking to AI like as if like they're talking to another human, and they're getting more comfortable with it, right? And even the age won't matter, and the literacy rate won't matter. Everybody can communicate with AI and get the response they want. Having said that, it's really are you trying to drive productivity? Are you trying to drive labor? Do you have an alternate, cheaper labor method? If you don't, then AI is the way to go. Look at it from that angle. I think you'll find your answers.
Also, I think for a moment, if you so this is more to do with saying your consumers are not interacting directly with a high technology environment, if that's what you meant, Parth, right? And if I could sort of then add on to what Manju was saying, right? The idea of using AI is to be able to service all types of consumers. And I'll give an example. farmers in rural India, and we constantly forget, right, that 70% of India is rural India, right? Farmers in rural India who are still on feature phones, not on smartphones, etc., right? They are being serviced by a large arm of the government in the form of just doing their soil analytics, giving them a soil report card, right? And it is all through the ability of some of our normal feature phones to take a photo of the soil and send it to them. So the farmer doesn't care about the fact that there's an intense AI, model running behind the entire thing. All he gets in his vernacular language telling him is when to sow and what to sow and how to take care of it, and that's what he cares about, right? And I think there are many, many examples of how that can be sort of translated to your business. I have another one in which Sujoy asks, and this is directly for you, Manju. How can Pluto 7 help customers COVID-19 disease? How can they motivate themselves and help society during violent uprising? I'm hoping I was able to articulate that well, Sujoy, because it's a long question.
Yeah, so the with COVID-19, when this happened about when the real momentum with COVID-19 picked up about 2 months back, within the company we made a declaration and also made it visible to Google, right? But we are going to pick some very basic problems, fundamental problems: medicine distribution, the food distribution, human touchless, safety in manufacturing or in retail settings. Pick those problems and said, if humans can't touch, if they can't interact, if there will be lesser humans interacting with each other, AI is going to play more roles, whether in the form of bot, whether it's in the form of vision, whether in the form of inspection, safety, all of those, right? Now, we have been writing white papers on this, and we are working with customers, with food manufacturers. Is your food safe? How can you reduce touch when moving boxes? And how do you serve the customers with lesser number of touch? Or even means when a person walks into your retail store, how do you identify is a high-profile customer? So there are many scenarios like this that we are working with. So if you send a note to contact@Pluto7, my team will set up a 2-hour workshop and we can go deeper in this and show you how other customers are solving. COVID-19 itself is going to last for some time. This is going to drive innovation, and Google and us are there to help you.
Thank you, Manju. I think that's an important step for all of us, right? Figuring out in our own ways how we can help the larger society in trying times like this. So obviously, we would love to keep talking about this, but I think I will wrap up and close out because we are way over time now. This has been an interesting session. Let me see if I can just sort of summarize the very diverse point of views that we have talked about, right? I think one of the things is do not chase buzzwords, right? Find a problem to solve or a business ambition to fulfill and work backwards rather than start by saying, I want to use AI or I want to use ML, right? That's one. The second, I think, is when we said that in the new normal, let's look for ways to collaborate with the larger ecosystem, right? Not just my business, but also technology partners, etc., etc. One of the cornerstones of customer experience in the near future will be how will we build confidence, right? And how will be more contextual? How will be while we experiment? How will we measure return on investment, right? The other thing that we talked about, that especially Anish talked about, is everybody keeps asking about hardware and software. What is very, very important is also wetware, which is the human element, right? We are a large percentage water, and therefore the context to any business problem is generally brought in by a human being. So that is never going to go out of fashion, right? And finally, and this is from me, right? We must all remember these are all probabilistic tools. They are not deterministic tools. They will assist decision making, right? But you are the folks who would have cumulatively hundreds of years of experience under your roof of the specific dynamics of your business, right? So therefore, that context always has to be brought in by you. And while many organizations are in some stages of having instituted tools and practices to sort of monitor, collect, analyze, and act on a mix of, let's say, digital surveys, behavioral signals, listening, and sentiments, the need for these capabilities will now become foundational for experience creation. And the speed at which companies can and increasingly must respond to them will become sources of your competitive advantage in the new normal that we will now face. Right. With that, I would want to hand it back to Nihal. Thank you so much. Thank you. Panel has been very, very patient. Any other questions that you would have? I'm sure the panel would love to answer one-on-one, and Ankita and Nihal will sort of facilitate that. Thank you so much. Nihal, back to you.
Thank you so
Thank you,
much,
Mr.
Mr. Das. Thank you so much, gentlemen. With that, first, actually, let me start by thanking Mr. Das for summarizing the entire panel discussion and duly helping us in answering the relevant questions raised by our attendees. Truly valuable takeaways from this session, gentlemen. With this, we bring today's virtual conference to a close. Before we end this session, let me remind you about the 2-hour discovery workshop with Pluto 7's customer experience AI experts. To know more, you may just contact Pluto 7 at contact@pluto7.com. Today's session wouldn't have been a success without the active participation of all our esteemed speakers, panelists, and delegates. I would like to thank each and every one of you for taking time out and being a part of this virtual conference today. A special thanks to Pluto 7 and Google Cloud for their support in this initiative, without whom this conference wouldn't have been possible. Thank you once again. Stay home and stay safe.